Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I'm your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We will give you real life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Isabella Bedoya. Isabella is an AI powered marketing strategist and artificial intelligence developer. Isabella is also the founder and creator, economy advisor at Fame Hackers. Fame Hackers coaches creators on building personal brands, monetizing their social media, and creating premium offers at that attract high ticket clients. You can find Isabella by going to her website, thefamehackers.com, or by emailing her at thefamehackers@gmail.com. Hello, Isabella. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Hi, Olivia. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Isabella Bedoya?
This is such a great question. um, to me, success looks like being able to do, whatever you want, whenever you want. Granted, there are it's a lot of time freedom and financial freedom, and granted, I know there's always going to be some kind of uh drawbacks and stuff like that, but as much as possible of being able to own your own schedule, that's what success looks like.
And I love the aspect of owning your own schedule and being able to make those decisions that are best for you in that time and being able to balance that. Isabel, your journey to finding your passion started with a very interesting aha moment, as we've talked about in the past. For you, it all started with pasta sauce. Can you tell us about how you got to the point of making pasta sauce and at what moment did the light bulb go off that there was an industry that you can dive into and thrive within?
This is it's the most like the random story ever, but also it just proves that you just have to be creative and resourceful. So when I was graduating from college, I moved back to my mom's apartment. I was in that limbo of like finding a job was too hard. It was either I was either too qualified or underqualified. So it was like this catch 22. Um and it just got really frustrating, and one day I remember my mom, so it was actually my younger brother that was living there at the time as well, and he was like super into like working out, and like he started counting macros and stuff like that. So just out of creativity, one day when I was making them dinner, I thought, hey, like what if I make pesto sauce differently? What if I make pesto sauce instead of like olive oil and basil and all the stuff? What if I just like substitute it with like Greek yogurt? That's gonna have some added protein and and all that. So I did it for my brother. He loved it, and then my mom was like, you should put this on in one of the Facebook groups. And and I was like, sure. I mean, I don't have any knowledge about like business or marketing or anything, so I went on like my local community Facebook group, and I posted that I had made this like creamy pasta healthy alternative with like Greek yogurt. Within a day, like I had received maybe like $125 worth of pre-orders. And when I went to deliver them all, and I try to make the experience super easy, people started asking me different things like, do you do caterings? Do you do meal plans, like lunch menus, stuff like that? And to every opportunity I said yes, and then I went home and like figured it out. So by the first week, that Monday, let's just say Monday was like $125. By like Saturday, I had generated like $2,500. And that was just mind blowing because that's probably what I would have made if I just got like a regular job, as a monthly salary. So that opened up my eyes to Facebook and marketing and social media marketing and stuff like that.
From there, having that moment of, oh, wow, I put this out there and I market it. How did you grow your marketing aspect within the past, starting off in that pasta? And what have you taken from that experience that you dove in more into as you were learning marketing and really learning the industry?
So, yeah, so basically when I was posting in the Facebook groups, I didn't really know it. It was kind of just what came natural to me. But like for example, I started collecting reviews and I would go on the Facebook group and I would say like, here's the menu for the week, here's all the reviews. And it was just like, social proof sales. Um and it wasn't really like something that I was trying to learn. I was just trying to get by. Um but the more that I immersed myself in this world, I ended up, one thing led to another. I ended up, I guess there was someone in like the Facebook group that it was this like interconnected web because then I ended up getting a job offer in Beverly Hills as a live-in private chef. So I moved over there, and then same thing, as soon as I moved to Beverly Hills, I just went in like the Facebook groups and I just started looking for like events and local things that I could go to. And this is when like Facebook events was like a big deal. This is like in 2015, 2016. Now it's probably like a little too spammy, but yeah, I was able to find some events and I hit the ground running. I networked like crazy. Um which that led to an opportunity at working at a label in music and social media marketing. And that's when I realized that's kind of how like Fame Hacker started too, because that's when I realized everything really moves around social media marketing. The more that we try to like push it away, you can literally sell rocks and it will sell through social media marketing. So then that just made me like dive in deeper into like those topics, those subjects, investing into people, courses, consulting, and eventually just dedicating to working in it full time.
And what I loved, and we talked about this previously as well, is that it is a pure example how just doing something and going, "Oh, let me try this out." With the pasta sauce, we've joked it all started with the pasta sauce, but at that moment, you were just trying to make dinner, and then you
Yeah.
said, "Oh, this might people might like this. Let me just see what happens." And from there, it really grew, and you started on your journey, and it demonstrates just how easy it can be to take something that you had an idea to shift, not create something totally brand new, but just shift, and you're like, "I'm good at this. Someone likes it. Let me see if more people like it." And also, what I loved about your journey too is you never said no. You took it, you said, I'm going to try this. You did it. And then you said, oh, wow, someone's coming to me about this. Okay, I'll do it. And you just stepped in and said yes and figured it out. Sometimes that's definitely the journey you have to take. It's just being open to not saying no and then figuring it out. Now, again, if you totally don't know something, and I mean, someone asks you, for example, to make a laptop and you know nothing about engineering or computer software, don't say yes to that opportunity. But if it is within your wheelhouse and it's just something you haven't tried yet, don't knock it before actually putting in the time and effort to do it. Because like you, it ended up learn like taking you down a lane of a whole career path that you've really mastered and gotten to know. For you, as you've grown and businesses within marketing have shifted over time, how have you continued to grow within the industry, especially since social media marketing has shifted so much?
Yeah, social media marketing has changed dramatically since the pandemic. One of the biggest things for me that's like super important is like to always stay learning. I never I think that's what sets me apart because I never stop learning. I'm always like, I always have an eye on what's going on, how the industry is shifting, what can we do better, or what are people starting to do differently that it's working. So it's like paying attention to the trends and paying attention to how the market's moving. And because of that, I've always found ways to like stay relevant. Um, so I think it really boils down to like taking action and not really like being afraid of the consequence because I mean, consequence in the lane of failure, because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, and it's like if I take action, if I fail, then I'm a failure, but I just see it as a huge test. If I take action and I fail, what did I learn from that test? what can I do differently, and then do it again.
Mhm.
And that's essentially how I've been finding like these pockets of opportunity or success. Like I never really intended to do caterings or any of that, but because I knew how to do it, I had a lot of background in restaurants and like working in restaurants and stuff. It wasn't like out of the norm. Now, if it would have been like you said, something completely left field, um, it would have been a different story. But you have a good point there. Like you have to be willing to say yes to the opportunities that come your way.
And what I also like that you really brought up was the aspect of, you have to continuously learn and be on the lookout for the trends because as things shift, in order to stay, as you said, relevant, to use your words, you have to understand that everything's always shifting. And I loved how you brought up the fact that, failure is a test. Anything we do is really a test and teaches us something about ourselves. Whether it works out like amazing and then you know what worked, but on that journey, even to things working out, and there's always those moments that you sit back and go, okay, this didn't work the way I thought it would work. People are still aligning with it, they still want it, but I thought it was gonna be 10 times more, attractive to clients than it is right now, or, I thought by implementing this, these things were going to follow, and they didn't. Why? And I think your analogy of it's a test really shows, yeah, you're going through the motions, you're learning, and whether you get a good grade on the test or a bad grade, it might be like what popped into my head is that overarching big final, you have in college, what cumbersome everything you've learned in the whole semester. So there might be areas in that you did poorly on and on that final, and there might be areas where you really succeeded. And when you look at that test, it might still be a good mark, but you look at those smaller areas and go, okay, where do I need to improve? And as long as you're open to that, critiques and those learning paths, it isn't a failure. It's just, okay, now we have to pivot. For you, we touched on how the markets were shifting. What has been the biggest difference you have seen as, social media marketing and AI intelligence has become more of a thing? What have you seen the shifts in and that you've picked up on that people should think about?
The biggest shift, and this actually is how TikTok got popular. The biggest shift was that it went from Instagram influencers, like posting these like facades and a lot of like fake realities, and people got tired of that. And TikTok came around, and it was like people showing up in like their messy living rooms, and just they were just being themselves, and that brought in a whole new wave of like authenticity that a lot of people didn't realize that that's what they were like missing. Because prior to TikTok, it was a lot of comparisonitis. Like a lot of people just spent a lot of time like wishing they had that life or they had the Lambo or all these different things. Even like celebrities would fake it and then end up on the news for faking it. So it was really refreshing to have that wave of authenticity. And if you're able to like dive into that, and if you are diving into like social media and social media marketing, it's all about building a relationship with your audience, and it's all about being authentic. If you're able to do that, then a lot of people use it as a vehicle just to like sell their products and their services, which is fine, but you have to first build that relationship. And that's where a lot of people miss the mark. It's for I'll just give you a quick example. For example, a more traditional digital marketer or social media creator might go on Instagram and say like, "Hey, buy my course and do this, and whatever." But a creator that actually will stand out, it is more like, "Hey, here's like 3 things that you could be doing differently. And by the way, if you need more support, I have this program." So it's like you lead with value, and that's a big shift that I have seen also on like on my LinkedIn when things started progressing. Um, I realized that this like actionable, useful, like how-to type of content is so much more well received than these like mindset shift content. And that's been the biggest difference. And I've talked about it with a few other LinkedIn creators too, and they say the same thing, that when they post this how-to educational content, which a few years ago it was like a huge no-no, now it's actually like standing out. It's performing way better because people want that value. They want that, that kind of resources from you.
And I think that's really important to understand the authenticity, and being able to build those relationships are really important. And like you've said, part of that is really on how the content is perceived and the differences and how you put it out there. And I definitely see it as well. Those people who aren't just putting out there, you know, whether it's videos like we do every Tuesday of like, here's this week's episode, this is what you can be getting, this is what you can be listening to, instead of just saying, hey, go on and listen. It's, here's a clip, this is what you'll get out of it, this is what it is. But also understand, like making your community understand not everything you have to pay for. And I think that's a big thing when you put paywalls up, in the aspect of everything you have to do to work with me is a paywall. It turns people off right away, right? We all are money conscious and we all have different money situations. We have to, when we're talking to clients or our community, understand that and then have the mindset of okay, who am I trying to be? Am I the business owner that just needs to bring in revenue? Or am I the business owner that wants to build that community first? For you, how have you made the decision to grow your business? And what are some of the things you do? And knowing so much about social media marketing that you've put in place to grow Fame Hackers and everything else.
Yeah, I make it all about the community. I Social listening is huge. Excuse me. Social listening is huge. So what that means is like actually listening to problems within your industry. So for example, um when I post something, I'll go through every single comment, I'll reply to every single person. I know it's like a little bit of a task to do that, but if they took the time to comment on my post, I should be able to take the time back to like respond to them. This is community building. This is fan engagement. And I think some of this fan engagement tactics I picked it up from like the music industry. Because Taylor Swift, she treats her fans like top tier, like, she has amazing customer service for them. And I kind of just carried that with me. So as long as I always know what people need help with, and if I can figure out, how to actually deliver content that's actually helpful, they'll continue being like, grateful, and they'll continue being like, following me, recommending me and all that. And I see it. And it does take a little bit of work, but it's what it takes to actually build a raving fan base or a raving community. And that has been my biggest focus, is just making sure that it's always audience first and then everything else second. And a lot of that is just, keeping an ear on the ground, and going through your comments, surveying them. I survey them all the time through emails, and sometimes you have to do like, little exchanges like, hey, I'll give you this thing for free if you can just fill out the survey. And sometimes you just have to do that. But the best thing and your best friend is going to be data of your own audience.
And I love that, and I think it's so important, like you said, to really be customer based and taking the time to do those small things. Like you said, replying to all the comments, because if your customers are taking the time to comment on something you're doing, or, "Hey, I'm having an issue with this, can you help me?" You should want to engage with them as well to build that connection, because when you build a loyal customer base, the return on that individual increases a lot more than if you don't, because then they'll want to be working with you. They see the value in what you're doing and providing, and then they go, "Oh, this is my go-to person," right? We all have those go-to people where you're like, "Oh, this person, I could call them up and like, if that's the situation, I could call them up and they'll solve the problem. I have a car guide. This is my car person. Like, you're going to the sale, going to buy a car, go to this person." We all have those people. So, understanding that that is built over time with loyalty, with authenticity, with everything else, and sometimes, like you said, bringing that data in and saying, what are my clients really looking for, will then help you move in the right direction to really change what we people say as order qualifiers, what qualifies you to sell a product where someone will actually buy it, to order winners, to where they're actually going out and saying, no, I'm definitely picking Isabella's product over, Paul's product, you know, because she has things that set her apart that I get from my money, whereas Paul's product does not. And that's a big difference. And you then end up bringing that loyalty in over time because you've done that. Isabella, for you, what are some of the ways that you continue to bring loyalty once you get those clients in the door and you work on their marketing and branding for them? What are some of the small steps you ask them to really hone in and concentrate on?
So the first thing I always ask for is like, what are they actually struggling with? Or what can they get what are they looking for help with? Um I've always just naturally been like that. Like I've always wanted to figure out what do people need help with. So if I do have something already available that, it's an easy download or a video or whatever, I'll send it to them immediately. Like there's no questions asked. But if it's something that I haven't really created, let's just say it's like they need help with something in particular that I haven't created or whatever the case is, then I'll just add that to like my content ideas or I poll people like on LinkedIn. I polled a few weeks ago, if I were to create a course, do you guys want, ChatGPT prompts, or do you want like, how to monetize your personal brand? And I use this data because then I build specifically what they want within my wheelhouse. Um, and I really can't stress that enough because it's like the law of reciprocity. The more that you give, they're going to naturally want to give back. And maybe it's not always financial, maybe it's different ways where they're like, oh, I need to connect you with someone, and that person is going to bring you a whole other opportunity. So I think, that's a couple of things. The other thing that I do also is I try to do one. I think this is like a big deal. So a lot of people will do like webinars and like online kind of calls, but then they'll block the audience from talking to each other. So this is what I do differently is I just invite people on a Zoom. I do have some paid workshops, but I also make sure to put out free stuff, and I just invite them on a Zoom. It's not really like webinar style, it's just open discussion. And having people in a Zoom room with your camera on, interacting in like dialogue, that also makes a huge difference because it's like instant rapport. You go from like just a name on a screen to now I just had a really insightful conversation with this person. And it's going back to what I was saying. It's like Taylor Swift. She actually, she actually flies her fans out to her house for like release parties. It's like it's pretty extreme, but I really do believe that that's what it takes. It's a human to human interaction. And if you are put in comparison with like, your favorite influencers, and there's one that's super transactional versus one that's always wanting to meet with you, wanting to connect, of course having your boundaries, right? That you're not overworking yourself. But as long as you create those spaces, you're always going to stand out more than the person that's just very transactional on like, I'm only here if you're buying this thing. And
For
you can
you,
tell.
for you, what have you seen as the trends have changed and things you've implemented? Where do you see social media marketing going, the next 6 months, the next year, that people should keep thinking about?
So with AI coming into it, there's going to be a big difference. There's going to be a big shift. A lot of people are going to start creating AI generated content. So this is very important for you to still stand out. You can use AI to ideate with you and like brainstorm with you, but it's all about being authentic and being unique. So as long as you're able to still, hone in on that, and if anything, use ChatGPT just to like, organize your content and ideas and stuff like that. That will be one big thing. And also because we're about to face like a huge wave of creation coming in thanks to AI. We're also going to start seeing curators. So there's already a lot of influencers that curate content, but we're gonna start seeing more curators, and that's gonna become a bigger niche. And and as we continue progressing, the biggest shift is gonna go from, and it's already happening, where it's not necessarily who has the most followers, but who has the strongest community.
I think as well, and something you really brought up is the AI GBT. You can't solely rely on that
Mhm.
because what's going to end up happening too, and you kind of brought this up, is your messages are going to start to look very similar to other messages. And then
Yeah.
it's going to get drowned in the noise, right? When we hear the
Mhm.
same thing over and over again or similar things over and over again, you start to drown it out. And then instead of being someone who's really relied upon, people start to pick up on that. And it ties back to the authenticity that you had brought in earlier. So using these tools such as AI and chat GBT, what are ways people can use them without necessarily just relying on that to put out their content, like while still using their personality and their ideas?
So ChatGPT, you can use it for for brainstorming. But for example, if it's the other thing is that it stays too superficial. So a popular technique or tactic in social media content creation is storytelling. So let's just say that you do go with like an idea from ChatGPT. Let's just say it's like 3 ways to grow your TikTok. In those 3 ways to grow your TikTok, the way that you can make it differently is by sharing your own human experience. Like, here's what ChatGPT says. Then you start talking about how you personally did it, and these are the key takeaways that you can share with other people based on your own experience. So it's still giving you the structure, but then you just have to insert your own relatable stories, and that's what's going to also appeal to people.
And I think that's a great takeaway right there as well as ChatGPT really gives you the structure. So if you know what you want to talk about, but you don't know how to formulate it or kind of that box to put it in, it will give you that. But then you can implement from the template, as one might say, you can implement your own stories. So it is still very much you, and it is very much relating to your community and building your community at the same time. For you,
Yeah.
what has been, you have really gone into using Chat GPT. For you, what have you seen as the result of that in recent that really has helped you navigate different scenarios?
I am fully immersed in ChatGPT. I love it. I use it for pretty much everything, from, you know, email ideas to figuring out grocery shopping lists. It has taken over my whole life, and it's amazing how much more efficient and productive I can be. Like the other day, I realized, I have created this prompt that I can get the copy for LinkedIn carousel pretty close to human copy, including like storytelling and stuff like that. So the editing, it's very minimal now just because of how much I've like honed in this copy. But I think the biggest thing for me was this realization that the other day when I had ChatGPT helping me with all these, you know, more mundane tasks, it had created so much like space in my brain to actually take it to the next level, because for example, I had an email campaign sequence created, and it was like generic, 5-day emails, and it would have been fine. But because I didn't have to think of every little word, then I had the space to actually think about how can I make it better. So I included like coupon codes, and I did like segmentation, all these like different automations, and I was just like, I would have never thought about doing all of this because I would have been so caught up in just trying to write the basic copy of it. So that's been like the biggest game changer for me. It's creating the space to actually think more like higher level strategic on a lot of these things, and not having to be so bogged down just doing like the basic stuff.
And I think that's really important is the ability it really gives you to be able to think at a higher level, because sometimes some of those tasks can be so overwhelming, especially if you don't necessarily have the confidence, or you've done it before, or you've done it a lot. What ends up happening is you kind of keep putting it off. You're like, I don't know how to do it. I might struggle through it. I don't know how it's going to be perceived. So let me just push it off. Let me get these other things done. When in reality, what the amazing thing with ChatGPT is it gives you that ability to say, okay, someone has my back to help me create it. And now, because I know that it's being created, as I'm reading it, because I'm not as stressed out, my mind is clearer. Hey, let me tweak this. Or, hey, what if we add this in? Because now you're not stressed and overwhelmed with the task as a whole. You have confidence in what you put in. And I think that's amazing. And for you, like you said, you've immersed yourself in it. What personal results have you seen with the ability to kind of be less stressed, less overwhelmed, have more time for things?
Yes. So it has taken over my life. um, excuse me. Yeah. So it has really taken over my life. It was the beginning of March, I think, that I took on this test of let me start, posting about AI and ChatGPT in a way of how I use it in like my marketing use cases. Let me just start sharing that. And I started sharing content, and it was about maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks worth of content that I had put out before something actually went viral. And it was this carousel that I did around how to create Canva carousels really fast using Canva, like the new bulk create feature that they have. So when I made that post, initially it didn't get any traction, but I had a couple of friends that did see it, and they were like, "That was amazing! Like that blew my mind." And I was like, "Okay, I keep hearing from multiple people that was a really good post. Why didn't it get any traction?" So I went back and, going back in the conversation, how you have to be willing to like, give yourself feedback and stuff. I went back to the carousel, I made it better, I posted it again. It was still off, like something was off. So, but I at this point I had like belief that this is actually a really good piece of content. So I went back again, tweaked it again, changed that call to action, made it a little bit different, posted it the third time, and it got like 1 point something million impressions. And I was like, "Okay, that's what I thought it was supposed to do."
And that's part of it, is understanding and believing in yourself. Like, okay, I'm getting the response. The people who have seen it, for example, in your situation, were like, this is great. It's unbelievable. And instead of going, well, it was someone said it was great, but it didn't get that traction. So let me throw the idea away. Going back to that drawing board and going, okay, let me try to tweak this. Like you said, and all of this ties back together, right? Like you said, it's taking that test, and the failures can be a test, because when you go back and you go, okay, what if I tweak this? Will my test result increase? And it did. And then you were like, let me try this. And then it got where you wanted it to go. It really shows that it's not always what you're putting out there that people aren't perceiving. It's just maybe being how it's put out there. Something as small as like an algorithm, something like that can really shift. And so believing in yourself that sometimes, it isn't what you're producing, it's just how it's getting out there. And that is very much just as critical as how or what you produce, because it can be a great thing. And I've had this discussion, especially with podcasters who've come to me for advice. I'm like, it's not necessarily, yes, you want great content, you want a great show, right? You want to build that community like we talked about. But it's also, if you put it out into the universe and no one knows about it, then did you really do it? Because no one's seeing it. So it's making those tweaks along the way. For you, what is something you would recommend anyone who's starting to go on their journey? Might be that individual who's creating pasta sauce for the first time and just trying it out, to really say, hey, take the time to learn this, because it is important. What would you say to that person who also might be thinking, I need to focus just on the pasta sauce?
So I think that the most important thing is that, you have to be willing to try. You have to be willing to give yourself a chance, and give yourself permission that you can try. And the worst thing that happens is, it doesn't work, and you go back to the drawing board and you try again and you try again until it does work. Because if you look at most successful people, they didn't get it right the first time. Even if just focusing on creators for a second, even all of your favorite creators, if you go back to their first post, it wasn't as glamorous or edited or anything as they are in the present tense. So I think it's like really, really important to give yourself permission to just test, and you never know until you try. I think part of the reason why I have been able to pivot quickly and all these different things is because it's just this mindset of you don't fail unless you quit. And it's a popular quote. I can't remember where I heard it, but it's ingrained in my head. Like, you can't fail unless you quit, and it's so true. Um, you hear it all the time when startups shut down for whatever reason. What happens if they would have actually just launched a new product or launched a new offer? They wouldn't have had to close down. They could have actually saved their company. So, as long as you're willing to try things and test things and listen to the audience and see what's actually, like, needed and not necessarily focused on what you think is gonna work, that's gonna take you so much further.
I 100% agree. So, Isabella, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, so my, best platform right now is LinkedIn, and I am Isabella Bedoya on there. My, username, I think the handle is, like, Isword, Izzwrd. And right now I'm building marketingpros.ai for this whole AI thing. So you can also reach me there. It's an online community. And yeah.
Thank you, Isabella Bedoya, for all of your insight today.
Thank you.
A few of our key takeaways from today's conversation are social proof sales. Be that social person that, you know, put it out there on social media, build that community, because your social proof and what you really deliver, like Isabella had said, through reviews can really help you sell what you're trying to do. As well as failure is just a test. Take it as a learning experience, move on, grow from it, and like we had said in conversations, think of it as a final. There's a lot of moving pieces, and you can learn from that. So then when you go on to the next level of the course, you know the fundamentals that you want to apply and things you want to shift to get that better grade. As well as it's all about building that relationship. When you build a relationship and you build a community, it ends up making a longer lasting business community, and just people who will really rally around you and understand your product and your offerings, as well as lead with value. Not everything has to be put behind sales walls and platforms. Give free content. Lead with showing the value that sets you apart as an individual and as a person, because that will speak volumes. As well as one of my favorite things that Isabella had said, and it was at the end, was you can't fail unless you quit. And unless you put it in and say, I'm done, I'm walking away, failure is just happening at this moment. And you can grow and learn from it. And if you really listen to your community, to the people who you've built your business around, it can be a small change as just offering something else of value that will continue to make you grow. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Isabella Bedoya. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.